What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. So about 24 hours ago, we did a video out on the channel talking about what I thought would be possibly the biggest sort of international rugby news to see off the year of 2022. Of course, Wayne Pivac sacked, but not sacked, standing down, but told to stand down sort of deal, and Warren Gatland coming back into the Wales side. We had a look at the team, what that really meant in terms of Welsh rugby going forwards, whether I thought it was a good idea, a bad idea, and went over some thoughts and stuff on that. Now, I really thought that was potentially going to be the last big piece of news we were going to be having, but no! England have decided to see out the year with their own piece of news. Eddie Jones has been sacked by England after review for the poor run in form. Now, there's a lot of similarities here between what happened with Eddie Jones in England and Wayne Pivac in Wales. So if you want to go watch that video, you can get my thoughts on that, because I dived a little bit deeper into the Wayne Pivac situation. Eddie Jones genuinely has caught me off guard. I did see this very late last night, that it was sort of in the mix of whether or not he could be going, but it's been officially confirmed today he is going. And I've got slightly different views on this one, as I did with the Wayne Pivac situation. Now, Wales haven't had a good year, and as I sort of said in that video a bit, I don't think they've had a good couple years, even though a couple of cracks have been paved over with results and what have you. England this year haven't had the best year. And I think people have been intermittently sort of saying about Eddie Jones, the results this year for England, 5 wins from 12 tests. You know, it's not good, as we sort of saw a lot in that article yesterday talking about it's a results business. You've got to be winning in order to stay in the mix. But this one is slightly different for me, because Eddie Jones is a very different coach to the way that Wayne Pivac works. And Eddie Jones has sort of shown time and time again he's a bit of a James Bond villain. He's planning in the future. He's got all these sort of things going on. But he is actually quite good at working towards an end goal. Even along the way, there's a few stumbles and stuff. And he's got a pretty good track record when it comes to the World Cup. Now, in terms of his overall sort of coaching stats stuff, he's done pretty well. He's got a number of Six Nations titles under him while he's been coaching England. Of course, he got to that World Cup final back in 2019 when they lost to South Africa. And of course, before that, he had a great run with Japan. I believe at one point he was involved with the Australia team as well. And I did think when that 2019 World Cup ended, we might be seeing Eddie Jones step down. There was talks about him maybe going to a second-tier team to really help boost them, who were up and coming, maybe a Georgia or a Fiji. I remember that being a big talking point around that time. This is before my channel was even made. And I thought that would be a really good move. Big hype with England, carry them to a World Cup final, time to move away, keep that legacy, move on to somewhere else. And I really thought he might have stepped down from then. Since that World Cup final, England not necessarily having the best sort of run of games. But one thing that I would like to take into consideration with this is the games that England are actually doing quite well. Now, of course, we've seen some mixed responses to this. Some people really happy to be seeing Eddie Jones go, some different sort of tactics wanting to be brought into England. Some people are really unhappy with this, and I sort of agree. I think this might be the wrong move. I think Eddie Jones has yet again been building towards a World Cup, and with only 10 months out now from the next World Cup, sort of similar to Wales, England are going to be left in the lurch a little bit to try and work out how they're going to move forward. Now, something I would like to bring up around this, although there's 5 results, 5 wins in the last year or so, when you actually look back over their results, there is something to look at in here. So going back to November of last year, they had a really decent win over Tonga. They moved on later in that November and got a nice win there over Australia. They managed to beat South Africa for a really nice autumn internationals. This year, their Six Nations doing mediocre, maybe below mediocre. They lost to Scotland in that opening game, came back to a really big victory over Italy, holding them to 0 points, beat Wales in quite a tight affair there. They lost to Ireland, lost to France. And on the face of it, that's not a brilliant Six Nations by any means. We go on to the autumn internationals, where they just lost to Australia before beating them twice in that summer series. And then on to the autumn internationals. That really close game against Argentina, which was a bit of a mad game. I remember covering that on the channel. They beat Japan pretty handsomely, a draw against New Zealand, and then sort of a recreation of what we saw in that World Cup final. Now, there's a track in this that I don't think a lot of people are really beginning to see when it comes to some of these games. For those of you who did see the video about the World Cup pools and how they work, I think there's a bigger plan at play here. Now, over the last year, of course, there's not a lot of wins for England. But one thing that is coming across is the teams England are doing better against are the teams they're going to be seeing at the World Cup stage. Of course, they had that win over Japan that was mentioned. They're in Pool D with them. They're looking pretty confident against Japan. They had a narrow loss to Argentina, which I don't remember England playing particularly well in that game. That'll be a game they'll want to target when it gets to the World Cup. They've more often than not beaten Australia, who will be potentially a team they could go up against in the quarterfinals, and they beat Wales in the last year, who could be another team they come up against. Getting out of the pool stage is one of the important things, but then when you get to those knockout stages, you've got to be able to see off big teams. Now, the teams they are losing against, they're losing to South Africa, they lost to France, they've lost to Ireland, they drew against New Zealand. They're not going to be seeing those teams until quite far into the World Cup, and I think Eddie Jones may have actually been playing this quite well. I think he's building a team more to compete against the rest of the teams that are in pools C and D. And then maybe this year we were going to see them target some of those teams in pool A and B that they could be facing in the semi-finals or even the finals. So the real question is this a bad decision? Is this the wrong time to make this choice? And while I sort of agreed with what happened with Wayne Pivac and Warren Gatland, I feel like this might actually be the wrong call from an England standpoint. I'm looking forward to see what you guys put down in the comments around this. I think Eddie Jones has actually been planning quite a long planned game. I'm not sure whether he should have stepped down at the end of the 2019 World Cup, but if he's planned to stay on, he's planning to have another good World Cup. I think the way he's playing against those teams in his pools is doing pretty well. He's introduced new players into this England team, people like Freddie Stewart, Marcus Smith, young lads, energetic, wanting to try and run the game. They've just not quite got the game plan down in a couple of points. So for me, I think this might have been the wrong call to get rid of Eddie Jones at this point. Something else to consider going towards the World Cup is this stat here. When we talk about a results game in international sport, what you want to be seeing, Eddie Jones actually has the highest test win percentage out of any England men's coaches, which sort of carries on that when they do need to turn up to the big events, they can do it. So basing it on one quite rocky year for England in terms of wins, I don't know if it's fully justified to say they're not winning and therefore, you need to get rid of the coach. I maybe think they could have stuck him out for the rest of the World Cup and seen how they got on. In terms of the replacements, it's not really been officially announced yet who's going to be taking over. Steve Borthwick is currently the main contender over at Leicester Tigers. A couple of people that have been sort of ruled out, which I thought were interesting. Ronan O'Gara has ruled himself out. I don't know why he would be necessarily the first choice for them to bring in for the England team. Of course, Warren Gatland stepping up to take over in Wales. There could have been a mad switch up here. Can you imagine if you'd actually got to see Warren Gatland head over to England and Eddie Jones head over to Wales? That could have made quite an interesting World Cup. Now, I'm not sure who will take over. I feel like with Steve Borthwick very much in the contenders for that. I feel like that would be the main choice to go for. They have spoken about, in a different article, talk about they actually might be looking overseas to get another coach in for England. But we'll have to see in the coming days who they decide to get in. But I'm really interested to know your guys' thoughts on this topic. So make sure you drop it down in the comment section, your thoughts on it. We will be doing a stream tomorrow. We've got another talking point to talk about on the stream tomorrow. So make sure you are subscribed to know when we go live on the channel. And we'll wait to see later this week to see who else is going to step down. Who knows? Andy Farrell, is he going next? Who knows? I'm looking forward to see what happens towards the end of the year for international rugby, guys. I hope you've all enjoyed this one today. I will see you all next time. Bye bye.